Významný německý profesor lingvistiky a sémiotiky Roland Posner z Technické univerzity v Berlíně si s námi popovídal o neverbální komunikaci a výzkumu gest. Could you tell us how the non-verbal communication research in Germany began?
In German or in English? In English.
In English.
I'm asking because it's not so easy. Non-verbal communication was not told that or called that way. It was mostly people tried to find ways for methods in the analysis of cultural phenomena which had not been in the focus of the disciplines up to that time. That's why we had something like the semiotics of film, for instance, or semiotic of certain types of music. Also, we had epistemologically oriented colleagues who wanted to give some kind of task description for the humanities. So that was the early context. Then, of course, we were quite much influenced by structuralist ideas, and there the Czech semioticians play quite a role. I'm thinking of Mukaszewski and Skal, if you know. He was a linguist in the Circle of Prague, and also of Roman Jakobson. And I think that plays a big role in the development of studies of human communication in the 20th century.
Could you specify what the Berlin lexicon of everyday gestures is?
The Berlin lexicon of everyday gestures has to do with the number of projects which we did at the Technical University in Berlin in the 1990s. And mainly we try to find ways for the empirical study of gestures and of body movement and its meanings. And at that time we used the methods of sticking sensory points at certain parts of the body so that we could follow the movements of the body, like whether I'm doing this way or going here. So we had a point here, another point here, and that was quite important. Also concerning the movements and their velocity. For instance, we had at that time the question, how can you notice, how can you manage to find a situation where the person moving the body knows it, or where the person doesn't know it? Where the person knows it but wants to show it in a very special way to, for instance, another person. Could be father and son trying to learn, make the shoes, the shoelaces together, or other gestures of that type. Even learning swimming can be distinguished. Swimmer, or somebody who doesn't know swimming, or somebody who knows swimming but wants to show this type of movement. So there are a number of empirical questions which could be dealt with quite easily with the new technology at that time. We now have more properties, technical instruments, so we'll have even more questions which are interesting.
Do you think it's very important for people to learn and understand everyday gestures?
Well, everyday gestures can be used to convey information which is the opposite of the information conveyed by oral communication. And I think that's a very important strategy of communication which one has to analyze. And it can be analyzed in practical surroundings very much. For instance, in the examination of diplomatic conversation. I once tried to make a program for research concerning examinations, for instance, state examinations, and how the behavior of the professors who examine and those who are examined, how they are related, and how maybe the body situation, the so-called posture, and the movement velocity, and the various relations of the various body parts of the examiner and the examinee, how they come together. So this is, I think, important for having situations of that type be more or less objective, not influential concerning the result of the examination, namely the marks.
How important are gestures in everyday communication compared to the spoken word?
I think the spoken word is some kind of luxury. We don't need it. But of course, when we have it, we can be very efficient and very differentiating in our messages.
So you think that people could understand each other without words?
Yes, I've been in many cultures where I didn't know the language, and nevertheless, sometimes I had the impression they understand me more than those to whom I could always, let's say, make remarks about possible improvements of my formulations.
Okay, and one last question. Do you have a favorite gesture?
Well, I'm still fascinated by the gesture which I analyzed here in my communication. And for instance, I was fascinated by the man who was the last lecturer, who did this all the time. And sometimes he turned his hands in a certain way. But this turning, he did not remark himself that he did it. He knew, I'm sure, knew that he was doing this, but he didn't know that he was also doing this. And this can be a commentary of what he was saying. This is openness, and then comes evaluation. And that is all done without words.
Okay, thank you for your time.